ESL teachers, Qkids and otherwise. I'm Teacher D and also known as Mrs. D on Facebook. And today I have a two-part video series. The first one is the explanation and the second one is the lesson examples. And the topic is TPR. TPR is a huge thing that we ESL teachers hear about all of the time, and maybe some of you might be new to ESL teaching or have never actually heard an explanation about TPR. So that's the goal of this video, is to explain TPR, and then the second video will show you a lesson where I used a lot of TPR, and will make a great example for you to be able to learn how to use the technique in a classroom. So the TPR stands for Total Physical Response, and it's using physical movement in teaching. And this is the way that infants actually learn their first language, through TPR. They see, they do, they learn. They see others doing, and then they connect the action to the language. And that's exactly what TPR is, connecting an action to language. And the reason why this technique is so effective, there's a couple of reasons. One is that it lowers stress levels and it lowers student inhibitions, because it takes the focus off of just reproducing a language and spitting a language out, and it combines learning and reproduction with a physical movement that's usually tried, you want to make it fun for them, so that they're not focused on learning language, they're just focused on having fun, and then the language will come out naturally. The reason why TPR is so effective for younger learners is because they are still sort of blank slates. If you take an adult learner, the techniques that you're going to use for adult learners, though TPR can be very effective, it's a little bit different for adult learners than it is for young children. The reason is because adult learners, think of yourself as an adult learner at 20, 30, 40, 50, however years old you are. You have all of 50 years of knowledge a life that you've been living, that you draw on, and 40 years of knowledge of the life that you've been living that you draw on. So you're constantly trying to make connections from your experience to what you're learning. And so that's going to be very different for a student who is 5 years old. They only have 5 years of knowledge, so they do not have so much knowledge to draw on and connect to. That's why TPR is especially effective. And also that's why language learning is best done with younger students, because they still have so much knowledge that they can learn. And so TPR focuses especially well with three types of learners: the visual learners, kinesthetic learners, and audio learners. Okay, visual learners is exactly how it sounds. They learn by what they see, especially with graphics, maps, and charts. So when they see an action, that's where they're making their connection. Kinesthetic learners are learners that have to do. They have to do a physical movement, a physical manipulation of some kind to heighten their learning ability. And that has to do with touching and feeling and physical movement. And then their learning ability will really shoot through the roof. Audio learners rely on hearing something and then speaking it. Hearing it and speaking it. And now these three learners, it's true for any subject: math, science, languages, English, anything. This is how they learn best. But it's very important when we're doing language learning to understand how we can take this language and connect with as many learners as possible. And that is why you always hear about TPR, because TPR connects with all three of these major types of learning. There are other types of learning, but because these are the most common, the visual, kinesthetic, and audio. They're the most common and the undisputed in the educational world. That's what we focus on. Now, in ESL, we use TESOL for two things, for instruction and for education. So examples of instructional TPR are when we need the student to repeat something and we use the ever famous mouth point ear cup. The boy likes chocolate. Yes, so the mouth point is when I'm going to speak, I speak, and then when I ear cup, that indicates to the student that I want them to speak. And you'll often see other teachers nod their head like I did and use a hand gesture. And now I will use the hand gesture mostly if they're not answering back. So I'll say the phrase, I'll cup my hands, and I'll ask them to talk if they're not talking. But some teachers maybe just do that automatically. Everybody has their own style. But that's one technique for instructional TPR. Another technique for instructional TPR is when you're correcting students. This is called the finger chunk. And it's useful because if a student misses a part of a phrase, you can finger chunk that phrase so they know exactly how many sounds they need to make. A lot of the times our students will drop articles. They'll say something like, it's apple tree. And you know that we need to say, it's an apple tree. And now by finger chunking, I have told them that there are 4 sounds in this sentence and they need to make those 4 sounds. I will often pair this with the ear cup. I will say, it's an apple tree. And I will wait for them to respond. I will say the phrase with the finger chunking, and then I will ear cup and wait for their response. If they don't respond, I'll draw back, I'll use my finger chunking again and say the phrase, and then I'll ask them. And hopefully by then they'll get to the point that they'll be responding for it. Now another way to get them to make sure that they're making the extra sounds is by clapping. But in an online classroom, I would caution the clapping because sometimes clapping can get in the way of our audio and our microphone. And since audio is so important in online teaching, it's maybe not the most effective way to do it, but you can say, it's an apple tree. It's an apple tree. But I'm sure that made some problems with the microphone, which is right here. So if you're going to use that, please use it with caution so that it doesn't overpower your voice and your audio. Another reason I'll use the finger chunking for infinitives, because a lot of the times our kids might say something like, she is swim. And they'll be so proud of themselves, and they've produced an English sentence, but it's missing one little part. So I will correct them only by saying swimming, swimming. And by finger chunking, I'm telling them that there's 2 sounds in that word, swimming. And once they repeat that, then I'll put it into the sentence, she is swimming. And they normally always repeat and do fine with that. And it's a good way to give them a quick reminder too when you're in the middle of an activity and you're moving fast and you're not going to take the whole time. You might only have to say, the student is oftentimes will drop the ing ending. So when they're saying their phrase, you're listening and you're hearing, she is, and you're going to right away, before they get to it, you're going to say, and then hopefully that will prompt them right into that, she is swimming, if they're able to look at you while they're producing the language. And then, sometimes we don't want to finger chunk or mouth point. Maybe it's something that, maybe they're a little bit more of an advanced level and they don't need to repeat the whole sentence. So I might say, or finger chunk the whole sentence. So I might say something like, it's an apple tree. And then that will indicate that and usually they will repeat it with and they'll say the and because they'll realize, oh, I left that out of the sentence. Or some kind of a hand gesture. Sometimes I'll also say, the boy plays. And, then they're getting the idea that I need to add something to that word, plays. Because they'll often say, the boy plays soccer, and we need to hear, the boy plays soccer. And so just by, sliding it, then they realize that needs a little bit more. And then the third instructional use of TPR is for commands. I want a student to click something, and I sit here and I go, click, click, click. It doesn't mean a lot to somebody who doesn't know the language, but if I then say, click, click, okay, or even just, using the mouse is way more effective than going click, click. But you can also do, because we have so many that are using iPads or a tablet, we can say tap, 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 or drag, drag. And so you can see the difference as well. I'm pairing the word with the movement. Here I might be saying tap, tap, so I'm going to use a faster word. Tap, 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 tap. And as opposed to drag, drag, and then the word matches the motion. Okay, so those are the instructional TPRs. Now there's educational TPRs, and the educational TPRs are used mainly to teach vocabulary and phrases, and it's just a way for them to remember the phrase or remember the vocabulary. So examples of those, the easiest ones are going to be like run, run, or jump, jump. Yeah, those are, simple, and you can do those, and let me see you. You is a command for instructional, right? You jump. You jump. And usually they'll start jumping, and you'll get the response that you're looking for. In the video that I'm using to illustrate TPR, it's a level 1, lesson 49 on Qkids, and in that video we talk about fly a kite. Fly a kite. So you can see I'm mimicking the motion of flying a kite to get them to connect, the flying of a kite to the motion, and then they'll be able to produce the language without really thinking about it a lot. And that's the idea. That's what lowers the stress, is that fly a kite. It's fun. And they're not thinking, roll a snowball. Roll a snowball. And then I'll even do throw a snowball. Throw a snowball. And again, then they're reproducing that language without even thinking about it. Okay, so also we're going to use this for phrases that we want the kids to know. And so if you think about it, I don't know how many of you have ever learned another language, but I learned Spanish when I lived in Ecuador. And at first, I couldn't understand anything, and it felt really strange. And all I could hear was like, like right now, if I started talking to you in Spanish, you'd have no idea what I was saying. ¿Cómo se llama? Yo llamo Dalila. Sí, hoy día es un día bonito y me gusta mucho el sol. If you don't know Spanish, you have no idea what I just said. Well, that's how those students feel. They have no idea what you're saying. So you can sit here all day long and let's say, swish, swash, wash, whiz. What did I say? Swish, swash, wash, swish. Let me repeat that for you. Swish, swash, wash, swish. You have no idea. But now if I do that with some TPR, I have to remember what I said. Shwi, swash, wash, swish. Swish, wash, teacher D. Swi, swash, wash, swiz. Swi, swash, swash, swizz. So now I'm saying, what's your name? What's your name? And so I'm using what's your name. And name would be right here. This is where your name would be, or maybe it's not. Maybe you have a name tag. What's your name? What's your name? It depends on where the name is showing up. Wherever the name is, point to it. Let me tell you something too that's interesting. This has helped me when they give me their Chinese name, because a lot of the times they might give a Chinese name and you can't say that Chinese name. So a lot of the times they'll have that English name down there and I will highlight that and I will say, what's your name? And then we can start working with that English name and it makes it a lot easier. So that's a little tip too. All right, so those are pretty much the different kinds of total physical response that you can use in your lesson. I encourage you to use it because it makes your lesson all the more interactive. The parents like it, the kids like it, and it makes that language stick. So use TPR, and I will have a video that is going to show a lot of heavy use of TPR. I showed you some of the motions that we used in this video. And a lot of my videos do have TPR labeled. Whenever I use TPR, or a lot of the times that I use TPR, I will label TPR. And that, that will flash up in text on the screen. And then you will see the TPR that I'm using for the students to connect the action to the language. I hope this video helped. Be sure to watch the next one, like and subscribe. See you next time.